When people mention modern warfare, you can discuss over a variety of topics ranging from drones, spec ops, combined arms, logistics, air superiority, you name it. However, in the dystopian world of Broken Arrow, apparently you can win with one single unit in the game, called the BMD-2M. A recent resurgence of Russian win rate against the US has caught a lot of people off guard, considering the patch has been out for more than 2 months and people often considered Russia to be dead. But that's not really the case because of well, I've said recent twice already, but because of the BMD-2M rush, and it's a really cheap IV that they don't even need to put infantry inside, and that they will just keep throwing them at you along with a bit of Shorad and AA support in the back. And if things go wrong, they might throw a nuke, maybe throw helicopters at you, hoping to break your formation and eventually push through with the BMD-2Ms. And surprisingly enough, this has been working quite well against, it's been pretty much breaking the US mirror meta. And today I want to talk about how to deal with it. Because as Sun Tzu once said, you must know your enemy in order to defeat your enemy. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about it today. So yeah, let's begin. So first of all, we're going to talk about the BMD-2M. If you know anything about this vehicle, it has 14 HP, legit no armor, and it could get upgraded with the smoke, but that makes the IV extremely expensive. Or more expensive. Sorry, not extremely expensive. It's still cheaper than everything else. Obviously, it's going to bring ATGM, but out of the two ATGMs, the Conkers and the Cornet is obviously superior, and it is often the choice picked by pretty much everyone I've faced. And the BMD-2M, well, it basically its name turns into this. If it had the Cornet, it would say Conkers, and if it didn't have anything, it would just say BMD-2. So that this is, you can tell what your opponent is spamming by looking at their name. And the thing about this Cornet build is that they only have 2 missiles. So the moment they fire both of their missiles and you smoke up, these guys only have their autocannon left. They no longer pose a threat with their Cornets because they're out of ammo. Obviously, they could technically let only one of their BMD-2M shoot their Cornets at the same time, but that would be too much micro. And considering these guys just spam the same unit and just attack around you, they probably don't have too much micro anyway, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Just smoke when you see a lot of Cornets flying at you, and then hopefully your opponent runs dry of them, and then you trade. Next thing that might be a bit lethal from these BMD-2Ms is their autocannon. Their autocannon should be good enough to shred most of your lightly armored vehicles, including strikers, maybe lavs, also Bradley sometimes if they get really close, and considering that your Bradley probably is the same price as 2 BMDs, it should do alright, but still, like, usually if it's a Bradley, you'd probably be facing 4 or 5 of them, so it's eventually going to get outran. Now last but not least, you could, considering taking smoke pods does protect the BMD-2M from Hellfire missiles from helicopters. I would take this, but on the other hand, no, I've seen no one take this. I've legit never seen BMD-2M people run smoke pods. Probably also because they can't micro. But if they do, then it's actually a good thing, because if they have to smoke themselves, then that means that their Cornets can't hit you. Their autocannons can't hit you, and you can kind of just beat them on the ground. And since it also costs 10 more points, they if every 4 they can basically only bring 1 less BMD for every 5 they could have taken. So yeah, if they take smoke, it's actually am I delusional for saying this? But it might be a good thing that they take smoke, so they have less BMDs. So that's about it for the BMD-2Ms. They are also like a couple things to mention. So not only do they get one shot by Hellfires, they any 2 RPG kind of like AT weapons, regardless of being an AT4, a law like those the ones that engineers use. Let me show you real quick. Infantry. Oh, even Marine Raiders. Okay. Okay, maybe it needs 3 or 4, but not this one, the other one. Combat engineers. Yeah, this would probably two-shot the BMD-2M, I believe. I could be wrong. Sorry for not fact-checking this, but even infantry thermobaric weapons can deal significant amount of damage to this, and that is actually quite decent. The only problem is you do not outrange them, and you kind of have to lure these guys into a city or near a bush, and then jump out saying "surprise, motherfucker," and then you blast these guys with like basically minimal amounts of AT. And the next thing is tanks and 105mm cannons, or like not weapons, tanks like the M60. You could even take the CEV, which it in fact does one-shot a BMD. The only problem is it takes a long time to reload, and even though it does have 2 smokes, but the frontal armor is not enough to tank like multiple cornets if you do not smoke in time. So it is technically a cheap like thing, because they also run the same speed, so you could kind of match CVs with BMDs. So if you feel like you are confident enough at microing, then sure, go for it. The CV does in fact one-tap BMD 2Ms. As for the normal 105mm cannons and the Abrams, then they also they take 2 shots. And obviously you do remember the part where I mentioned that Hellfires take them down, and to that, normally these people that spam this strategy, they in fact have this, they usually run VDV and mechanized, and they would bring, where is it? Tunguskas, or maybe Pantiers at times, and or maybe this thing called Sosna, which costs 160, and they actually outrange all Hellfires and everything, and they don't need radar. And as you can see, they actually don't have a lot of armor and HP, so if you can, bomb it. But only bomb it when they're getting really close to your lines and you know that their S300s are kind of far away. But that being said, even if you lose your plane, as long as you killed all their Sosnas and Pantiers, hopefully, then it's going to be worth it. And because afterwards you'll be able to fly your helicopters with Hellfires and then kill all the BMD-2s. You could say that, but Korn, what if he just brings Iglas, right? What if he just brings Motostroke Igla, which they can't carry in BMD-2Ms? What about VDV Iglas? Well, they only have 3 of them. So these guys, for the price of more than the BMD-2Ms, only get to fire 3 Iglas. And as you know, if you happen to have an Apache, the guy has to get really lucky in order to kill you. Like, really lucky. So these guys probably won't be taking Iglas anyways, and if they run this combination, then the chances of them bringing an Igla is really unlikely. And if they do bring out Iglas, that means they're going to get fucked on the ground. So, on the ground war, I'm not saying like physically in real life, but in-game, okay, in-game. Sometimes your opponent is going to spam helicopters because they're playing VDV. And if they spam helicopters, they're going to have abominations with rockets, with Vickers, and then they will fly 4 of them at the same time against you. And at that moment, I say, pray to dear God that you brought Shurad. Maybe not even normal helicopters you have, because most of the time these guys would bring some kind of Iglas themselves. These are actually 2 big specs that rely on this strategy. They usually run VV guards and VDV mechanized, so they only have VDV helicopters. Okay, that's great news. So some of these helicopters would have rockets with Iglas. I mean, it definitely makes sense that they run this configuration. And then for the alligators, they have Vickers and rockets, probably. So this is probably going to be the things that you're going to be dealing with. And also maybe a couple of cheaper helicopters, but most of the time you should be targeting these 2. But on the other hand, you also need to like kind of keep your Shurad alive. And we're going to be talking about what Shurad you have that can deal with them. You have the Lab AD, which the gun is clearly does not have enough pen to deal with Russian helicopters. You kind of just have to shoot your stingers and then pray to God that you deal enough damage, or like you get lucky enough to kill everything. But do remember to smoke these guys as soon as possible as they try to like fly into you, because the rockets alone will just kill this thing. It is not sturdy enough. For Armor Brigade, you do have the... Where is it? I'm blind. Not linebacker. M-Shorad. That does have decent pen, so it can deal damage to helicopters. It has the Stinger. It can also bring Hellfire. That's up to you. But eventually, you really do also need to pop your smoke and rely on your gun to deal with the helicopters, and not actually the Hellfires or anything else. For Airborne, you do have the Slam Ram, but this one doesn't have smoke. It is technically... Well, I'm not saying that the AIM-120 or the AMRAMs are bad at dealing with this. They're actually fantastic at dealing with them. But don't rely on these guys, because they're going to get rushed. They might get bombed even. They might get ADGM'd. But do take more armor. Like, regardless of whatever configuration you take, which you might have a preference for, bring more armor, because this is going to save you from one Vicker shot, and it's going to take them 2 shots instead of 1, so this helps. 10 points, it gives you an extra chance at firing maybe a couple more AMRAMs. And Avenger is basically the same thing as the Lav AD, but it has a shit gun, so just also remember to bring smoke and double stinger pods. For Striker, you actually have the best tool against this. Not only can you bring APS, you also have enough armor to deal with their rockets, unless you're unlucky and they keep hitting your top armor. You have a decent gun, a lot of stingers. You can even bring Hellfires to deal with BMDs, which actually works quite well. They don't one-shot, unfortunately, but it's still good enough. And you also get the C-Ram, which is a bit expensive, a bit on the expensive end, but they also fire fast enough to deal with this. You even have the MML Stinger with I personally think the Stinger one is good enough, but I also don't have space for them in my deck. So if you want to make a specific deck for dealing with these strategies, then sure, go for them. You have 3 options here. And then for helicopters, you actually kind of you still trade better than the Russians do, since technically your A helicopters are mostly cheaper than theirs. But losing these guys is also not that great, because they might keep throwing helicopters at you, or they might just have Shorad sitting in the back that's going to kill your helicopter. So it's always better to have man pads or a Shorad. And yeah, so that's how the helicopters are gonna go. Last thing is that sorry, this is taking longer than it should, but these guys will either try to loiter Su-35s in the back, which will act as an intercepting plane to kill your planes that are trying to strike their Shorad and maybe some other things. Yeah, they're gonna try to kill your plane. So they will spawn these in the back, but on the other hand, if they do spawn a plane, then that means they're not dedicating all their points, or like 260 points, on an extra 5 BMD2s. So that's a good thing. If you don't see like 15 BMD2s, don't panic. Don't call a plane. Just do your thing. Especially if you see a plane. If you see an enemy interceptor, then maybe don't spawn planes for now, unless you're really fucked up. So yeah, that's one way to do it. Sometimes these guys also prefer things the old way, which is they're going to get strike planes of their own. Maybe they'll try to smart cluster bomb your bookers, which does actually sound quite viable. So it is also nice to have a bit of AA on your own, even though honestly the nature of your opponent's the nature of this playstyle is them trying to rush you and destroy your structured army, which for the first 1,000 points in the first couple minutes of the game, it's going to be hard to build up. That is true. You need to kind of just not lose too many units at the start of the game. It's okay to trade ground for it, by the way. Like, it's okay to lose a bit of units at the start of the game. I even got nuked one time. It was not fun. But Just try not to get sudden death, even though they tell you to surrender or some other things. And slowly but surely build up an army consisting of some vehicles. Bookers are also the best. A bit of infantry that is good at defending cities or maybe forest at the very edge of them, but try to lure them into the forest so you don't get killed out in the open. And then last but not least, a bit of Shorad, actually a bit of extra Shorad, and a little bit of SAM sites like packs and stuff. And after that, do you truly start to chill back and relax, and then you just kind of, if you have a strong enough army then that these guys won't be able to break through with a convoy of helicopters and BMD2s, then you have truly won the game. And but still, again, you kind of rely on your other 4 teammates to understand how everything works, because otherwise, if one player breaks, then the second player is going to get ran down by another extra player of BMD2s, and it's not going to be very fun. So if you ask me for an ideal deck to deal with this, if you're playing against Russia all the time, or if you happen to be playing against Russia, bring strikers, bring bookers, 50mm cannon, no more. This is all you need. This is all you need. And then maybe Marines are actually quite good for this. You could also play SF, because you have Comanches that could snipe enemy Sosnas or, well, the Pantsir smoke, so that's not going to work out. But
middle push. So.
Your infantry is also beefy and tanky. The Raws, I mean, you could just run the 70-point Raws and you'll be perfectly fine, because they two-shot everything, all the BMD2s.
Oh, no.
If your opponent run BMD3s, BMP3s, then that's a different story. But regardless, normally people run the BMD2M, so this is good enough. It's also cheap, so yeah, there's that. And they also have decent range, like as you can see, 500. So you can just pop out of a building and then hide back behind it after you kill a couple. And another one is Marines, where honestly all of these are pretty decent, considering they all have their own tools that they can use against these Russians. Actually, okay, how about we change the narrative to how to counter it with every single spec? Okay, that sounds much better. So for Striker, you have bookers. For Striker, you have bookers. For SF, you have Ranger Raws. You have Hellfire helicopters. And you could also use RC with but it'll only get 4 charges, so it's not that much. But as long as you have like enough AT, then you should be able to deal with them. Airborne is a bit more special because you have a lot of options here. Not only do you have Airborne NGSW, even though I do personally recommend the standard Airborne, not the upgraded one, because they have 5 AT4s, and 5 of these means you can take out 5 BMD2s with 2 squads, and that makes them really cost effective. On top of that, you also have the AGL teams, which, funny enough, they do in fact, I mean, with a couple bursts, they can take down a BMD2, especially if they're clumped up, so this also works for a cheap price. The tow teams are okay, but none of them actually one-tap, but yeah, they work. But it's actually a bit better if you could just simply run the Humvee tow, because for a cheaper price and upgrading their armor, you also have access to the Blams, and these are capable of one-tapping BMDs, even though like you later on you have to repair them, and it also takes a bit of supplies. Weapon squads will also work incredibly well because they shoot both at the same time, but you just kind of need to keep them resupplied, mainly because they do shoot quite frequently. And the Sheridans, they also, the HE shells, one tap every single BMD2. The only issue is that they also don't have any armor or HP themselves, so be aware of that. The M8 AGS for the Thunderbolt, it's not as great, mainly because, well, obviously you don't one-shot them, and they're also quite expensive. They have no armor if you take the APS version, but if you don't take APS, they get one tap by the cornets. So your best tool in this entire specialization is having the Guardian. If you really want to, then be my guest and running this the 380-point Guardian. You just have to be really careful at microing this. Even though you could technically stay at maximum range at 2 kilometers away with the 25% ECM, it's kind of hard for a Russian Shurad to tap you as long as you fly low altitude and right next to a building you can hide behind. So this is really good if you know how to micro helicopters. Same goes for the longbow, except it's a bit it is a bit less range. But the Guardian is actually, I've had a friend, he was showing me he killed 50 something BMD2s with just one Guardian the entire game. It was crazy. But yeah, you can try it out if you're confident in your skills. The Armored Brigade is extremely effective at dealing against BMDs because of multiple reasons. They have the Blams, which is the tow BBs. These will one-shot every single BMD2. They also have mech engineers, which are very cost efficient. 5 launchers, a 2-shot each of them. Mech riflemen, same goes for the mech riflemen, but mech engineers have an extra launcher that can also deal with infantry, so that makes them really good. You also have CFVs, but these do not one-shot. These are like the anti-vehicle ones, so I would recommend using the ESV to deal with them, and also the normal M901A3. These also have the Blams, so it also works out for them. If you really wanted, you could take the MLRS with Cluster or HE. HE works just because they have enough pen, so they can kill EMDs by just splashing near them, so that works out as well. And then last but not least, the USMC. We've talked about the the CEV, but then also Marines. Where are they? Marines are also extremely effective at dealing with BMD2 rushes. You just hide them behind somewhere and then jump out when they come nearby, and then you just whack them hard. The smalls are also great. They still 2-shot, but their capacity is only well, they actually get 8 charges, so that's not too bad. And at the end of the day, you still get even normal HE bombs like the 1,000-pound JDAMs is enough to penetrate their sides and deal big damage. So, but still, it's probably recommended to reserve your planes for the Shurad. And yeah, I believe that's it for the quick guide that I just talked. How long did I take? So yes, at the end of the day, this still is a match based on skill. People are demanding for death tax to come back, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't, but it's still going to take the devs a while to fix something, or maybe apply changes, or maybe they think this is fine. I have no idea, but for now, this guide is the best bet you've got, so I wish you good luck out there, everyone. And thank you for watching today's video. I hope it did not take too much of your time and you learned something. And I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.